I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. Welcome everybody back to I Mix What I Like. I'm Jared Ball, happy to be your host, joined for this very special live by Sudip Bhattacharya, whose socials are linked in the description below. And in just a moment, I'll invite to say a little bit more about himself. But folks, please come on in, like, share, subscribe, support however you like. Yes, as was raised a minute ago, Black Liberation Media is remonetized. So however that makes you feel, please engage appropriately. As for over here, same. Engage how you feel is appropriate. And but very excited for this particular edition. Something been in my sort of intellectual ether space in the background for a very long time. And so based on a project that Sudip and I are working on together, we thought we would in effect take our scheduled meeting and make it alive and have a little fun. Oh my goodness! But Sudip, welcome. It's good to see you again. Have you join me? Please introduce yourself and say anything that you would like about who you are and what brings you and we to this discussion. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning to everyone in the chat. Really good news about Black Liberation Media. So that's really awesome. About time. As far as I followed it, it's been a while since trying to get monetized again. Yeah, I'm a doctoral candidate in political science at Rutgers University. I teach classes in American Studies, in political science. So I teach classes about like the U.S. empire,
Mm.
race, Asian American studies. Unfortunately, nothing about financial literacy. So that makes me extremely dumb. Um, and yeah, you can. I'm also a writer, so you can find my stuff at Black Agenda Report, um, Jacobin, and few other places. I have a journal article coming out with some really, really great people. Uh, I think early next year in New Political Science, and that's about education as well, and basically just about capitalism. But yeah, I'm really excited, and just I my partner kept she found extremely funny every time she would look over on the couch when we read together, and she would see me reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I'd
And
be like,
see, I was going to say, it must look crazy, like you're reading increasingly less lower intellectual. And no disrespect, everything has its place
"Oh
relative,
yeah, 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 yeah."
no, but there are levels, and this book is. But now that I know, I learned so much preparing for this that
Mm-hmm.
I never knew about the book. And now that I know about the book, it makes perfect sense that it is as bad as it is, because in some ways it was designed to be as bad as it is. So, but that's something we can come back to. I did just want to say, and the book is trash. I just want to, on every level, but I now understand why. But I just want to say a little bit that what brings us to this specific
Yeah,
project, and I'm sure your partner has the benefit of at least this level of
yeah,
awareness, right?
yeah.
Because if you just pop up out of nowhere with this book and you're engrossed on the couch, I mean, it might look a little crazy. I might
I did not read it anywhere public. I kept it.
if, no, if I popped up somewhere and saw a loved one, just engrossed in it unironically, I would have some questions. We would have to have a conversation. We would have to have, but in many ways, that was in 2001. That's how I was introduced to not through a loved one per se, but through a colleague at the job I saw reading the book at lunch. We were teaching at a high school, and I already knew then. I had already read. I was already too far gone, and I had read a little, at least some Marx and some of the basic radical left canon. So I thought I knew everything, and I had read all of Malcolm X, so I really thought I knew everything. But hey, whatever. But I saw her reading this, and then we had this conversation, and she lent me the book
Oh, okay.
over the course of a weekend because
Oh,
she was convinced, like this was going to be her way out of the high school teaching career that we were, in at the time. And it's immediate that it's useless. It's I mean, so that and it did sort of negatively impact our working relationship. Like I was just like, I said, this book is not good, and that she didn't, agree. Uh, but real quick, I did want to say that we've entered this on
mm-hmm.
as part of a broader project
Right.
that is looking at the narratives around Asian and Black economics, and starting with some of these myths around why don't Black people do what Asians do, and then Asians just being all Asians regardless of any specificity or detail. So all of that is where we.
Right.
And then over time, we've been reviewing some books, some articles, some documentaries, and this I felt like we had to address because it's just been in the. And then it just keeps coming back for a number of different reasons, because this guy is still active. He's still producing social media and popping up, and I didn't even realize this was one of like 30 books he's written.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's how we ended up getting to this. So with that little bit of a background, please say anything else you would want to say, and then how do you think we should go from here?
I just follow your lead. I mean, Well, actually, can I just say one thing? Oh, there's is there an echo?
Yeah,
Like,
there is. If you have headphones, that'd be
yeah,
perfect. Yeah, yeah,
I'll do that
thanks.
right now.
So while you set that up, let me just again thank everybody for coming through. And then I see even uh some members in the chat. Welcome. Thank you very much. Yeah. So this was something I wanted to actually bring up, that even in announcing that we were doing this, so
Yeah,
many of these messages have been coming through. And then I
yeah,
have some I looked up a couple things that might help explain that too. And but that is this so many messages on my social media and elsewhere saying, yeah, my
yeah,
dad gave me this book, my cousin gave me this book, my partner gave me this book. I fell for it once upon a time. I got by this. There's so many, and it's understandable. It's
yeah,
understandable. And
yeah.
again, I am now very clear on that. So, well, let me just ask you, since like I have what I want to get to is like what I think is the big reveal for me, but uh I'll just tease that. And why don't we start with what your overall thoughts are with the book, and maybe you could talk about, you could actually, if you don't mind, tell us. I'd like to hear actually what you found in the book, and or what you thought of the book, and then I think you said you had a number of things you wanted to say about it. So I'm happy to have you lay out what you found first.
Sure. Is there still an
Yeah,
echo?
no, that's perfect,
Okay, good.
perfect.
I hear an echo on my end, but I don't know.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
No, I don't hear
Okay.
one here.
I'll just. Yeah, I can hear a little bit. That's weird.
Yeah, I
Um,
don't. Does anybody? I don't actually hear anything.
hmm,
Um,
I hear an echo on mine, but
all right,
it's fine for now. Let's see.
should I can try, let's see. Yeah, I'm not. mm, Um,
Yeah, I can definitely hear one. Hello?
all right,
Oh, it's gone.
it's gone.
It's gone. Yeah.
Okay, perfect, perfect.
Thank you. Let me see. So first thing I want to say is I don't know if this is the big reveal for you, but for me, it was definitely the fact that his rich dad is not his dad. That was messed up when you read the book because I assumed, I wasn't thinking it's gonna be super progressive, like he has two dads, or you know what I mean. Like I didn't think that was what's gonna be the reveal. But I assume maybe it's a stepdad, maybe the poor dad is the stepdad, and I don't know. I'm not trying to be like too like it shouldn't matter. You shouldn't call your dad if he's a good dad, poor dad. But I thought something like that would happen. Maybe like I was even telling my partner, I thought maybe it's two dads, and I was like, what is? So if you read the book, you'll learn very fast that the poor dad is his actual biological dad, who's called poor even though he's not really. Throughout the book, you realize he's struggling, but he's actually quite accomplished. Like he's got degrees. He was a leader in the teachers union in Hawaii. So it's not like he's in the muck. So it's like very, very demeaning. I don't, that was the personal angle where I was like, I find this book demeaning at that level. Like if I ever wrote a book like this about my father, I would have to like first tell him or talk to him about it for a really long time. And even then, I'm pretty sure because my father has, a backbone, he'd be like, I don't want you to call me poor dad, and then have the entire book say I'm wrong on everything and in a demeaning way. Because there's a part of the book where he says at age 15 or 16, he was giving his dad lessons on money. I would be like, you need to just go outside and leave me alone. If I was like, that's crazy. So his rich
Well,
dad
if
is,
it helps, I'm
yeah, go
sorry to
ahead.
cut you off, but just
No, no,
quickly,
no.
if it helps, his biological father had been dead before the book came out, so his father never saw the book. Uh,
Whoa.
so it may help you with that, because I agree.
Whoa.
The rich dad is his friend's father,
Yes. Yes.
and
And
yeah,
yeah.
But yeah,
Oh
so
wow.
but the book, by the time the book comes out, and again, so I will say that is not my reveal. I haven't.
Okay.
What is my reveal is something else, and it's in part because of this, though. But his father never, thankfully at least,
I
has to
get.
suffer
Yeah.
watching his son call him the poor dad when he was I mean, he ran for like governor of Hawaii. He or something like that as as a Republican, and that and his and Robert at one point says Kiyosaki says that his father was stupid for that because he was saying you can't win as a Republican. He should have known better. But the point is he was not poor in the conventional
No.
sense of what we would think of when we hear the word poor.
No. No. Not even close. And then the rich dad is, I guess, obviously in the book, and I really want to hear what you're gonna. I can, but just his rich dad is his best friend's dad, who just owns businesses, and in the end you realize just gets ahead by not paying his employees, I'm sure, well, because at one point he says, I don't even like unions and I break unions apart. But this is something we'll get into, I hope. I think we will. But I do want to say about what you just said about people finding interest in it. Robert Kiyosaki, in this book, he doesn't present himself as a typical conservative. Like he doesn't like there are little tricks of the trade he does, because he does come out and say I support unions. He does say that. Like I can see both sides. He doesn't say socialism killed like trillions of people, which is the usual
Right, right,
thing that
right,
people do.
right.
Like, don't you know they killed like quadrillion people? It's like, okay. And so he does say things though that are still I want to get into, but they're like a little bit like a couple of points removed from still criticizing them and ending up in the same place. But the tricky thing about him is that when I was reading it, I was a little bit taken aback by some of the argumentation he used to circumvent typical conservative talking points that then makes it more available to a broader audience, maybe. Because they don't want to be told. Because the thing is, there's like a level of, I wrote this term down, there's definitely like a similar financial eugenics going on here,
Oh,
right? Like there's still that level
yeah.
of you're dumb, you're
hmm
fearful, but he
hmm
says they, typical people, like there's a level of craftsmanship in what he's doing
Mm.
that is very
Instead
interesting
of
to
saying
me.
to directly to the audience, "You're dumb," he's saying the others who aren't reading this book and going to listen
Right.
to me are
You're
dumb.
special. You're
Right,
gonna be
right,
special.
right.
You're gonna have the
That
power in
makes
your
sense.
hands, right? So I want to leave it there. And well, the last point. Well, there's some interesting things about settler colonialism in this text that are just
Mm.
amazing to me, because he makes real estate comp. He talks about the Manhattan Island. I'll get into. I really want to hear what your reveal is.
Okay, so just it's interesting that you said that. So a lot of what I what I ended up getting distracted by is his personal story and stuff that's not in the book.
Mm,
And so I'm very glad to have you catch some of those finer points that I would have missed years ago when I read it initially, and probably missed again in the speeding reading I was doing here, because the book, and I think you or other people were pointing out, like the book is boring, and I thought it was boring. It's so many of these really anecdotal and very specific stories that I highlighted a couple of examples, where he just says things like, this is what you should do. I had a friend that wanted to buy all this land. So I put some options on the land and then made an deal that would work for him, and put him in touch with the person wanting to sell the land and put options on it. And I'm saying, who is waking up in the morning and and it's like got a friend. It's like, hey, I'm trying to, these very specific, not can't be duplicated. All right, so I'm yeah, I definitely want to come back to this point that you're getting to here. The Yeah, I guess what I'll just say, the big reveal to me is, I'll just play it here, is in one, he is not the author of the book.
mm,
And two, though this book is sort of a foundational game changer in terms of this monstrosity called financial literacy. It was initially a brochure for a board game that he was intending to sell that was meant to teach financial literacy. So that's why at the end of the book, you see him talking about this cash flow for kids. And I'm going to play you this clip from his really the author or co-author who would eventually break from him, because even for her, he goes too far into the grift of ripping people off. But so when you say what you just said about it's got this sort of popular style, he's even, this is in part why the brochure wasn't meant to reveal. It's meant to be a popular for poor people, for working people, for type of thing. He evolves, to the extent it was an evolution at all, into a very he pro. I was a Marine.
Yeah.
Very conservative. I have an article I want to show that where after during the pandemic he comes out as exposing his racism and all of it. So he's like and then he's just he comes off as just this really he's always talking about the doing the whole alpha and beta male nonsense and all this other kind of, he's into that whole red pill grift type thing and all of that. But at its core, and I'll share this here and just play a couple minutes. This is Sharon Lecter in an interview, as it says here, the woman behind Rich Dad Poor Dad, and in just this 2-minute or so segment, I think this is the reveal for me. Right, it's all right here.
Volunteered just as a friend to help him commercialize the game, and in that process, he told me he wanted to charge $200 for it, and I said that's kind of pricey.
And that was in 1992, right?
1996.
Oh,
this was
wow.
Yeah, I said that's kind of pricey.
And she's talking about Robert Kiyosaki.
For the board game, maybe you should write a brochure to help market the board game so people would understand it's an investment. It's not just a playing tool. And that's when he asked me to be his partner. So we became partners, and that brochure was called Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Wow.
Most people don't know that background story.
Yeah,
we never
so
expected it to take on a life of its own, certainly not to sell 35 million copies and be on the New York Times bestseller list for 7 years. But that started a journey. All of a sudden, we thought we were a game company and said, oh, no, we are a publications company. And that was the first of 15 books we wrote together over the 10 years we worked together.
So your whole business model shifted because of the demand.
Yes.
Right? I mean, that's amazing.
Oh, yeah. My original business plan was gorgeous. It was so pretty. And it was about going to the top, the 25 most powerful women in the world through Forbes. I thought that they're going to want the same kind of control and power to get education to their kids. It was an absolute disaster. Only one of them agreed to even look at the thing. So it was, at that point, we also realized the message was really hitting home with a lot of people who are small business owners or people that in the network marketing industry. And so as we were going down this path, this other path opened up in a very big way for us, and we were able to grow very quickly around the world.
Message.
I hit the wrong button.
Okay.
I was trying to hit the message button, but that to me was the big reveal. It was initially not even meant to be something that would do more than bring people into this board game that would introduce children to the basics of financial literacy, by which they define the silliness of checking accounts and investment and this, that, and saving and this, that, and the third. All right. And as she says there, I thought we would have a market with these Fortune 500 type women, et cetera, and so forth. And they're not interested. And of course, they're not interested because everybody who looks at this thing would understand we don't need this.
Right.
First of all, if we already have money, this is silly. And if we don't have money, we know enough to know that if you don't have money, this is not going to help you. So we don't need it on any level. So then she says, "Oh, right." So Lecter says, "Oh, right," and that's not our market. Our market are the people who are the so-called small business owners and people who are the poors, who are going to be tricked by this ridiculous narrative. And then ultimately the other part of the reveal for both of them, for her and for him, is that all the money that they end up making is not, again, as is the case with all of these financial literacists. The money they make does not come from the activities they claim in their literature, in the courses they sell, which he talks about in this book.
Yeah.
He says, I am happy to pay for courses and a lot of money for courses, so which is why I'm now rich. But because that's how they make their money, through book sales, courses, lectures, and then in the content they're saying invest in this and save that and borrow that or go into debt with this way and do that. But that's not what they did. That's
Yeah.
not what they do. It's the same thing all over YouTube and all over these podcasts. These people are not rich because they invested right and rode the stock market correctly and did all this. It's because they're selling something.
Right.
And that became the grift. So it was like, that's why when you read it, it's got this folky vibe. It's got no content,
Right.
vague anecdotes. It's completely bananas. And anyone who understands anything about how the economy works, especially if you've ever, studied anything to the actual left of whatever, it's just bizarre. But their target audience are poor people, are small entrepreneurial people who are convinced that is the pathway,
Right.
and that's how they made all their money. And that's, I mean, it's anyway. So I'll stop there. But that was for me the big reveal in all of this. He didn't even write the book. It's a brochure for a board game.
Right.
And people, as she said right there, who know anything about the economy know it's ridiculous and a waste of time.
I did not know that, so that's really information to me. I looked into him on his website, and I know like he raises a lot of like things about his life that are kind of in the book. But there is also, it reminds me of the other book we've read, Donut King, in the sake, in the sake, like there's things emphasized and de-emphasized, right? And there are sort of like weird gaps that he does a better job of actually filling, because in the Donut King, it's like, this man's called the Donut King, but like you said in your other, YouTube review of it too, and we've incorporated into our work, that book is really not about Donut King being a Donut King. It's about the CIA and the State Department and interfering with Cambodian politics. Like a big portion of it. It's only 20% of him saying a little bit about him giving some money to a few people and growing this like so-called empire of donuts, but it's mostly about, I helped Cambodia get most favored nation status, right? This book is really not, like, he references financial literacy a lot, right? Like he talks about it as that's why I say financial eugenics, because he's still saying like poor people are still poor because inherently it's very like Protestant too. I'm not a Protestant, but I'm like, when I think about what I've learned in high school about it, like the whole idea that it's like a loop, right? Like the people who are poor because they made these choices, hence like it makes sense, but if you're rich, you've been chosen. And here it's a little bit religious theology, except there's a little bit more agency maybe, but it's very much like bequeathed to you, like you just had it in you, the right thing. And maybe this book is just tapping into you, the special one, to realize you just need more intelligence. But like you're saying, he does talk about just being a real estate flipper. Like there's some things, and to the vacuousness of him, for a large portion of the book, exactly, I was literally writing down over and over again, how do you develop IQ? Like he keeps saying, you got to be smart. You got to be yourself. You got to become smarter than the game. It's like, okay, in page 250, page 180, I'm like, still like, what does that mean? Like, how do you develop that? And then, like you said, it's revealed finally, repetitively over the next third of the book. Come to seminars that cost you $300. If you don't, he has a habit of also demeaning his friends. That's the thing about him that's so wild. Like, and this is something that's interesting too about that woman writing this book for him, and then him. I actually watched some of his YouTube videos, just a couple yesterday, just to like, because I read the book and I was like, I'm just curious about him. There's one video he did, again, selling these courses, selling his new academy, and everyone who comes, like, so he goes through this. So it's just him with this like, board and with this big notepad that he, writes, and then he does like the thing with it. It's still gunk, stupid. But the most interesting too is like how he again sells himself, and then he like has all his accountants and academics and medical professionals. He's now into medical stuff. Like what he said, like there's a person who came on who's like talking about how the medical industry, rightfully, is not about holistic medicine or preventative. But it's of course, weird because it's RFK kind of stuff where this person, you're just like, they're into acupuncture now or whatever. But they never come, they're not sharing the stage. You're just called in. Like it would be like you and you're in the middle of the YouTube whatever, and I'm just like calling in. So it's still all about him. And this book is like that too. Like he's quite demeaning to every friend. Like I call my like you said, I call my friend, told him to come to Phoenix, put like $4,000 or maybe more on something, and my friend was like nervous the next day, which I thought was quite normal. And he's like, oh, he's just a dumb idiot.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the, like, yeah, like if I have a lot of great friends, obviously, unfortunately, none of them as brilliant as Robert. But if someone called me and said like, hey man, I got this new thing, it's going to break your mind. And I'm like, oh, cool. What is it? And then it's like just real estate flipping. And I'll be like, all right. And I just like give like $1,000, which I don't have. And then I'm like, oh man, I'm really sweating about it. I would be really annoyed if this guy's like, and that's the thing, not knowing. I also wonder how much of this is real. Like to your point, the anecdotes is on anecdotes, right? Even the part about the rich dad, it's like, this is giving it too much, but it reminded me, I don't know much about the Greek Roman stuff. I don't know the difference, but like, like that, I had to read this in political theory when I was an undergrad, the whole Socratic method, like Socrates going around the town asking people questions. I found him annoying, but I was probably the only one in the class who was like, I kind of understand why they wanted to get rid of him. He sounded really annoying. Like walking up to carpenters being like, what do you think about the minutia of your work? It's like, leave me alone. But this reminded me a little bit to his credit, because the first chapter is just literally the rich dad taking them through a day, not paying them, by the way, and then like saying, do you see that woman over there? That woman you like? Like this woman you look up to who works at the store? Do you know why she's a dumb idiot? It's like, what is going on? So I just don't even know. And also, but the dialogue, I know everything. Like I'm a fiction writer. I know, there's a little bit of everything in these books, but this is being sold as like you said, real knowledge. So even then, immediately, I'm like, how did he, as a 8-year-old, remember any of this?
He didn't, because he didn't write it, and
right.
and they're making all of this up. And this is what I'll have to add them to the show description, because I just was watching all of these videos. Like first of all, quick, his so-called poor dad. First of all, if you start off by calling your own father the poor dad and using him as this trope, of course, thankfully after his father's death, so his father doesn't have to live through the indignity, right? But it was his so-called poor father that actually bankrolled him at one point after a couple of his early silly ventures failed, as is the case with all of these folks. Wow. His father gave him $100,000. $100,000 in like 1979 or 1980 or 85, somewhere back in the day, to get him back on his feet, to relaunch himself as this mogul. That was the reality of the poor dad. So that's one thing. When you talk about the courses, and it's not just $300 courses. They range from $12,000 to $45,000. These courses that you get, where as some of these videos, these folks were saying, you get basically what you would get in any encyclopedia or economics 101, or because that's all because Rich Dad Poor Dad. I mean, there's some stuff in there. It's like it says, it's always got a little bit of something in there. If you really can't afford it, don't do it. Or
taxes. He does say like something about like how to write off things and become a corporation. But then he says at the end, but you got to do it legally. He says it. Yeah. Like he said, like one line just to cover his ass, but it's like really funny. It's like, you got to do it illegally though. It's like, what?
But exactly. So it's because again, the book is a brochure for a board game that as they say, they pivot on, because they're like, what do we need a board game for? We become a bestseller with a book like this.
Right.
And of course, and this was one of the points that I know we're working on for our project, but it's that it fits so perfectly into the already existing narrative,
Right.
that is inviting of entrepreneurialism, the free market the free market fundamentalist approach to society. The corporation will solve everything. Individual choice is ultimately what determines the outcomes. And then even as he says in the book, education is important, he ends up disparaging education and saying, all these silly professors and university students, they don't know what the hell they're doing. They're, and it's a waste of time, and all they do is end up in debt. But at the same time, he's saying get money and invest it in real estate and flip houses. So it's like and then he throws in an anecdote about a friend of mine had thousands of dollars to invest, and I just insinuated myself into his deal and get paid.
Right.
And it's like, but again, all of that is nonsense. All of it is mythology, because at the end of the day, all of the money comes from selling books and selling courses.
But also, I just wrote down, you said individual choice. So there's a couple, I do want to talk about, I want to tear into this book, because I think honestly, it is one of the worst things I've ever read.
The book is terrible.
Terrible, because it's like also messed up. Like, again, it's about advice, so that's what makes it worse. Like, it's like, but I do want to say, like, why it feels so. I think I saw in the chat, like, someone mentioning rightfully, like, this book has been debunked years ago, but it's been reissued in 2022. So it's, and his YouTube channel is getting, like, I looked some of their comments, more people are saying things like, listen, this guy's been talking trash, I'm over this. But there's still a lot of people buying into it.
Oh, no.
A lot of people.
As I said at the beginning, just to be clear, I'm not, certainly speaking for myself, I'm not presenting this, I'm not suggesting we're presenting this as we are breaking news.
Right. We're not.
No.
Yeah.
If anything, we're saying as part of our broader project,
right.
I wanted to go back to one of the foundational causes of this modern scourge, because everything he argues in that book, that brochure, that board game brochure, which I admit I didn't know about until preparing for this. So I didn't know about that, and I still don't think a lot of people know that. But what they say, and what Sharon Lecter says in that book for him, is that is still the foundation for so much of what, for instance, future Dr. Erica Brown and her colleagues are destroying in the forthcoming work is going to, on this thing about financial literacy. But this whole podcast punditry, the whole broader entrepreneurial Black capitalist, all of that has so much energy. And so much of it is a copycat of what he did. So yes, his stuff is debunked.
Right. But I to the point of so I just wanted to, because the things I want to cover is also like why we think this thing is relevant. And we'll go, I know, deeper into these points more. But one is like, you not only do you see it in the typical format, but like you said earlier in the show, we've been going through podcasts, movies. For instance, I think The Breakfast Club, they had those two guys, Earn Your Leisure.
Yeah.
That was just like, I think we talked one of our meetings ago. I mentioned listening to Earn Your Leisure for the first time full, and they were on Breakfast Club, so I thought I could kill two birds with one stone for that one. I was like, I don't want to listen to too much of either. But they were just on, I think, a few months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And what they were arguing and they were talking about Invest Fest, your favorite event. And they were just talking about that recently, not 3 years ago, not 10 years ago, just a few months ago. And they were basically saying same things that this dude has been saying since 97. I mean, he was ahead of his time in this, like he's, the Andrew Tate, of his movement. But at the same time, it's relevant that way too. Like the Breakfast Club is a big platform, and they were literally saying things like basically implying the same things he's saying. Everybody needs to hustle on the side, 3, 4, like, yeah, you can't, he doesn't say this, but basically you can't sleep. Like, you gotta keep managing your properties. And then everyone by implication has to be somewhat of an entrepreneur, which also is very confusing about how the network of an actual economy would work. I guess we're just selling to each other. Like, we're in a marketplace of, like, pre-Dark Ages Europe or something. Like, we're just, oh, you want a hammer? Let me sell you, like, and then you sell something back. It's crazy. So that's relevancy. Like, it's there. And also popular movies like Sinners, I've mentioned this, obviously it's not the same thing, but in that movie, the Jim Crow South was presented very weirdly anyway, very like bloodless until the end. But also the two brothers Michael B. Jordan played, it was like kind of, again, the specter of the small business owner. Like, it was until they went to Chicago, cheated all these like mafia people or something, which is fun, and then came back down with they had the vision. Same thing in this book. The entrepreneur has the vision. Nothing moves in history until the entrepreneur has that vision. And then, to your point,
sorry to jump in. He literally says the mindset stuff.
Yes.
Where he says,
yes.
he says what poor people do is when they say they can't afford something, their brain stops working. He said,
yes. And he says fear. Like, he says, fear is what's preventing you to get out of the rat race.
Which is it's proto cryptocurrency language.
Yeah, it is also on his YouTube page. I think I was watching a little bit of his, like,
which he's a big supporter of.
I was about to say, I watched a clip of it the other day, and it was like the year in review, and he started doing that. I was like, that's hilarious. This is so on the nose of everything.
The other joke was he supports Bitcoin, he supports Trump, and he was interviewed on DJ Vlad. That to me should say everything you need to know about somebody. But okay, sorry, I interrupted you. You were saying,
oh, I want to just add one more level. The individual choice thing you said, I just wanted to say one thing about the most extreme core of how it gets so bad, and is he's so individual choice that that he brings up as an example of a good deal the selling of Manhattan to European colonists for $24. So that's not, it doesn't stop there. It's only a few lines. I was like, I underlined that. I was like, is he really saying, like, again, it makes Adam Smith look like a socialist, like, because he's assuming everything is on an asymmetric, like, they couldn't even read the contract. Like, they didn't even, like, so that means he's a criminal. Like, that's what he's doing. He's presenting very criminal acts. He's laundering it. But then in that same space, he says quickly, but if that $24 was invested then, it would be like 24 billion or something now. So he still blamed the native people for like not investing ahead. I was like, do you not realize since that period of time they were being slaughtered or they were fighting and they were, that's my most extreme example.
Why are you bringing up this context of settler colonialism? If they because if they had invested at 8% annually, that $24 would have been worth 28 trillion by 1995. The indigenous population is good. What is the problem?
Choices, not
they
like
made. They just made
not like even in that movie.
Invest it. I mean, I'm sorry. Just even.
I know
it even forces, because it makes me want to ask: invested in what? At that time, invested in what? Was there even I'm forgetting my histories. What was there even a stock market? What was the stock? What would they have invested in at that time?
A land trust for their own land
at 8%.
8% to get messed up over. And again, this goes back to the other thing about how even you have Black and brown and Asian entrepreneurs who are maybe liberal coded or maybe not purely conservative, like earn your leisure. They do this weird thing where they're still blaming the survivor or the victim of these broader systems. Because at the end of the day, you think the Europeans or the whites, if let's just say they had a time to invest, you think they're just going to sit back and be like, well, this is an honorable system. We'll let them invest what they have and we'll take our time. No, they would have, not saying that would even been real, like you said, like what would they have invested in? They would have burned that to the ground like they've done several times. So it's like that itself is crazy. He does that with that, and then he does that with the Alamo. Like this is just littered with horrible history lessons too.
So I did just quickly Google this. So this quote unquote sale was in 1626, and according to this quick search, the stock market in the U.S. wasn't officially quote unquote invented or set up until 1729. So they would have had to find, as you said, some other vehicle for that 8%. And I apologize. I'm embarrassed that I felt the need to even to do that, to be dragged in any direction by that ridiculous statement. But I did want to quickly just, for my own edification, be reminded of, But yeah. But right. Sorry for that. Yeah.
No. I just want to say the history too. Like he talks about tax history. I'm just writing these notes for myself, but he writes about tax history through his rich dad. Like rich dad gives a tax history that itself is insane. Like the way they present taxes. Could we go into a little bit of like
Please.
maybe how they? I do want to touch on one again. What makes this pliable to some people? Again, if you read, you're right. Like in recent year, he's become more and more craven, more and more explicit. Maybe just a grifter purely. Maybe he's also just changed his mindset because he wants to get on the Trump train. Of course, he names Trump in this book, but he names Trump, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, and George Soros. So this is the interesting thing about him. He was mentioning like a buffet of maybe liberal coded to conservative coded entrepreneurs, right? So that's the thing that was interesting to me about that too.
What is also interesting is that one of the videos I watched for today's made the specific point that a white guy who followed this book's logic and lost a ton was saying that if you listen to Warren Buffett, who is as many will say is the Michael Jordan of investing, says the exact opposite of everything Kiyosaki says, specifically today about happily going into all kinds of debt.
Right.
And whatever, obviously crypto. Warren Buffett was not a fan of crypto either, but so yeah, just throwing all these names in there though in a book like this again, because that's why I think what was for me the reveal is important. It's a game board brochure that ultimately is repurposed to target those who are never meant to actually participate in the financial system in any meaningful way, other than as just exploited labor. So it's when you just throw these names around, it's not expected that anybody is going to learn the nuanced differences between a Warren Buffett and a Donald Trump and a Robert Kiyosaki and whoever else. And in many ways, it won't matter because who's not, it's fantasy that even if you would want to, even if it would be seen as some sort of advance to be in any of those spaces in the first place, or in those circles in the first place.
Yeah, I found that very fascinating. It's a lot of like in the first few chapters, it's a lot of him through the rich dad, literally like doing a lot of talking, right? So he sets it up. I really did think like, oh my God, I can't really take more of this for another chapter. Just him sitting on a bench and being like, that lady I hired, she's a dumbass. Like she's off. Like she's so stupid. Like I was like, all right, this is like the 5th time you put down that one lady because you like they see a homeless person right around the time they're talking. That's why I was like, this is like a movie. This is like a Daily Wire movie of Hallmark invested, whatever. Like they're just sitting on the bench of the bleachers somewhere. They're watching people play. The other thing too is like they're just condemning everyone for being quite normal, right? For like wanting to just play baseball or not have to always be hustling. Because this rich dad too, when you take apart what he's doing, not even with like you mentioned having read Marx and other like reading Malcolm X, like yeah, you don't have to read the whole oeuvre of either of them, I feel like, but a little taste of each to feel more like, you know what? It's okay to care about people. And it's okay to build a society that's not about hustling. And it's okay that people are like that woman, like, well, one of the things that's so striking in the book is like one of the scenes that one of the early scenes is that, you know, in his house, the rich dad's house, he has like basically a lobby that's his living room, and all his like managers, I guess, sit every morning there waiting to be asked to his office to like get like, I don't know, like to run down how they're gonna first of all, that's really bad way of running a business. I feel like if it's every day, like why don't you do it?
And if it even ever happened.
That's the thing, the fantasy, you said the fantasy is just, it's so glossy, but to give people a chance at this, to be quite honest, like again with the book's dynamic, the back and forth with the rich dad, I can see why people would enjoy it, because it's like he's basically asking questions, getting the kids to ask him questions, and he is answering in his own stupid way, but he's answering them, so you feel like you're getting it from the source. And then in the rest of the book, there's a bit of like history, a history of corporations, a history of tax history, and then they have diagrams. I mean, all this is, the diagrams are so bad. They're just like
the diagram. It's just a diagram. It's just like a diagram pointing to having like more money.
More money. I circle, it says rent, and I was like,
right,
what?
Less debt, more money,
more money,
less expenses,
no
more wealth.
Right.
It's like, oh yeah, he's right.
That was my
I should
impression.
do that.
I was like, I started shaking my partner shoulder awake when she's, I was like, oh, wake up. Like I just found our answer. It's like more, she just wakes up to me being like, you know what I did? I bought an apartment, another apartment, and I'm gonna flip that, but I'm not gonna I'm also gonna hire a manager, and then I'm gonna pay them, okay, and then I'm just gonna do a couple of that deal, and I'm gonna live in debt for like 5-6 years, which he doesn't talk about. He hints at that. He says one moment he does say it took him like maybe 3 or 4 years to finally go from the red to making a profit on one of his business ventures. I'm like, who has the money to wait that long? And he also says, one of the things that was quite interesting, he says one of his points of insight was you need to raise your own money, not just from the banks. Which goes to what we were arguing. Like if everyone around you doesn't have money,
right,
where are you gonna go? And that's the whole point. It's like, well, after my 9 to 9 job, because that's what it feels like every day now, I'm just gonna go to like the freaking golf course, you know, where they don't even like me, and just be like, hey, I would love to talk to you, Mr. Pick an old waspy name, Mr. Roberts the Third, you know, wasp. Like, let me sit down with you and let me tell you. And he's like touching the red button under his chair, like calling security immediately. Like, where are you supposed to go? So yeah, those are amazing. I wrote the same. I was like, I should put this in my dissertation to be like, this is what,
you know, get your job and your salary, and then it, you know, wing it around and get, you know, don't have it go into liabilities and expenses.
Don't
have
do
it
that.
go into assets that become income.
Right.
Like, oh shit.
I know. He says you gotta pay yourself before you pay your bills. I still don't know what that means exactly.
Yeah, no, like, he still says that in video. Pay yourself.
But what is that? But what does that mean? Like, I might be dumb, but I don't know what that means. Do I give myself a salary?
This is why that white guy I was talking about who made the Warren Buffett comparison, he's essentially saying, not at that, I think, that simple a level. It was more, I think, more complicated with trying to flip land and rental properties. But that was the point, though. Because at the baseline, at the foundation of what he's saying, it forces people to act illogically and against their own interests based on where they actually are in the economy. Right. So if you the pay yourself first logic just means I'm not going to pay a bill this week or this month.
Okay.
And I think we've all done that. I don't think it's that, you know, I've happily said, I'm not paying that today. Right. I'm paying that, you know, damn that. I got cash in my pocket today. Right, I'm going out. But that's first of all, that's not why anybody's poor. So I just want to keep that mantra going. This is not about people being financially illiterate and that's why they're poor. But it also does mean, you know, at a time, maybe it would be better to pay the light bill than go to the club. And in that level, yeah, okay, I fine. We should encourage that. If you're at the point of you don't have groceries and you don't have baby formula or whatever, don't go to the club. Go feed your child and keep the lights on. Okay,
Right,
great.
right.
That's wonderful. Fantastic. Now, I'm just going to write that up with a funny diagram and try to get on the New York Times bestseller list. Because at the end of, because behind that, again, towards the end of the book, is take courses, buy all my other books. And I mean, he literally says it there. When my friends told me I'm wasting my money, I'm happily spending a lot of money on very expensive courses.
Right.
To teach me how to get rich.
Right.
So he's saying, again, it doesn't explain how that works, because he's just trying to get you to the point where at the end of this book, and being, maybe dazzled by those beautifully drawn sketches. Now I'm actually thinking maybe that is him trying to be friends with Trump, and who also is apparently a good sketch artist.
They did co-author a book, he said.
So I mean, there it is.
Yeah.
Where was that book written?
Right.
On what plane or what island might that have been written? Oh man.
We live as we're doing an embargo in Venezuela. We live in the most sane, perfect place. So I just feel like he was
absolutely
in a palace of wisdom, sitting down, writing. I have to be honest though. I'm glad you told me that about I really was lost as to what he meant by by paying yourself. I was legitimately like, is he just saying not pay your bills? Because I'm okay, but I was like, because when he repeats it, because the whole problem with this book is that this is going to sound offensive. There's nothing wrong with repeating. I've recently reread parts of Mao, just like a couple of months ago or a few months ago, and he repeats things in his texts. I am not, even though this probably would give him a heart attack, I'm not saying that Robert is Mao. But there's nothing wrong with repetitiveness. The point is, with Mao, you can just tell the writing is meant to truly just be guideposts. Here, it's like a lot of hammering in to force you to think this is real. And also, he says things that are such big claims. Like one point, he said something in his book where he said, if you give 100 people something like free money, 80, like he makes little bullet points to make it official, 80 of them would lose it all, 5 of them would be okay, and then 10 would make it. I'm like, I just circled evidence, like there's been so much evidence showing opposite of that. Like there's been so many little like municipal programs, like in Canada, I think, that they gave money, free money to people who are actually poor. And yeah, some of them might have done, like, it wasn't like a perfect record, but overwhelmingly, if I remember, everyone got their bare essentials met first. And what's wrong with entertainment? What's wrong with also having some fun with your cash?
Yeah, we're talking about what is supposed to be a consumer-based economy, where if you don't have, as you say, fun with your cash, everything collapses, and people like him go broke because you're not also spending up to $45,000 on one of his courses.
That's crazy.
Which is bizarre. So, but he also leaves out, as almost all of these types of people do, that as was the case with him, that when his surfer wallet venture failed in the 70s or whatever, that's when he goes back and he goes to his actual poor dad and gets $100,000.
Right.
And then so how many people do any of us know could run out here and fail and come back and get $100,000? Even $100,000 today, not $100,000 then. Right. Like who so they leave all that part out. And then of course they keep leaving out, this is the game board brochure, and I've really made my money selling books and courses.
That's why I'm glad I had no idea about, because he mentions cash flow, the game, about 2/3 in, and then it becomes heavy. Like when he starts to it becomes heavy after that, and I'm like, all right, this is crazy. Like I didn't know that, but it did feel weird for me. I was like, and also richdad.com is on every page. at the
Yeah.
bottom. In like richdad.com. It's like I noticed it halfway through because I'm like losing my mind because I'm like, no, I'm serious. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I read a fiction book that I've mentioned to you before, Minor Black Figures by Brandon Taylor.
Mm.
Both of these books I was reading to criticize. I'm not trying to put them in the same level. That's wrong to Brandon Taylor. But my mind was melting because I felt sick. I felt like my mind, like you said, like the other things that we've watched, even though they're annoying sometimes, the documentaries, you can get them done in a day. This is like still a pretty hefty book, and I have other things to do. But then I'm starting to know is richdad.com. Then I'm starting to know Cash Flow, the game. He talks about a friend who was getting frustrated by the game, and then she didn't want to like follow the game's advice. And I'm like, first of all, this is a couple.
Yeah, I keep distracting you, but feel free to go to the book, or to the or
I just
whatever
want to
you
say,
want.
like,
Yeah,
my thing with the book is not so much as like, look how stupid it is. It is stupid and it's dangerous. Like, it's not just stupid; it's dangerous. Like, it is preying on people's. So, a couple of things. Like he says, like it's a couple of gems swimming in shit, right? Like it's like he says things that can speak to a little bit of people's earnest horror and annoyance at what's going on. And that's the other thing that makes him a step removed from maybe the traditional conservative who's like purely saying to everybody, even the other white dude who might be struggling a little bit, like, oh, one of my oil companies failed or something. And they're like, listen, George Washington built this place, a lovely man, you just got to dig deep. He doesn't really say that, although he does say the native population should have invested and got 24 trillion. But he doesn't.
They were this close.
They were so close. They got the right amount of money for all that land, and he should have, I don't know. But he does say something where, because in the beginning, he does a forward to the book that's new. And he does talk about, so a couple of things. So he says things like, okay, his anti-intellectualism, I see that fomented even on sections of the liberal left. Lived experience, like you mentioned, anecdotes. People do lean into that, even on quote unquote our side of the fence. Sort of, they're like, well, you're not this kind of person, or you don't have the exact background. How can you talk about Venezuela? You're not Venezuelan. It's like, I don't, what, like, you know what I mean? And then you have that white Venezuelan lady who's on New York Times op-ed in the video being like, and she's a comedian, and her dad was like a Venezuelan like neocon. But that's what I'm saying. Like, there's a little bit of like that dust in our era that I think Kiyosaki appeals to. Like, hey, if I'm struggling, I have to be honest with you. I'm not saying I'd ever do this, but if I was really down and I did not have the this is going to sound good, but I didn't have the parenting of my parents who's like, you got to look out for this stuff. I can see desperation. I've been around people who are desperate. Unfortunately, they've been around good people who are telling them like, you got to do this. Like you said, maybe don't go to the club all the time, save a little bit. But desperation can be a crazy thing. He acknowledges it. He acknowledges in the book that the game is rigged. Because his arguments against socialism, again, ties into that. He doesn't say socialism killed 24 trillion, billion, quadrillion people. He basically says socialism is naive. He says in that book that he doesn't give credit. He calls his dad socialist. He doesn't know. He's just calling his dad anything. But he basically says, oh, people who are socialist, they are wrong, not because they killed so many people, allegedly. He doesn't say that, actually. They're wrong because they don't quite understand that that capitalists will always find a way out. So he's not wrong to say that. He's wrong about socialism because you get rid of the capitalists. That was the funniest shit. So it was like, laundering capitalism through sympathy. But that's the thing about the book that's so sneaky, right? He basically, same thing with labor unions. He says, if I was still an airplane pilot, I would be a labor union. But what he does say, if you think about deeper, he says, so with socialism, it's naive. The rich get ahead, which speaks to what some people might think. Yeah, the rich fuck me over. It's too naive to join this other crap. I want to get ahead now. So that's one. That separates him from like, I don't know, Rand Paul or I don't know, Ron Paul or whatever his name, like Paul Ryan.
Either one.
I keep confusing all of them. Paul Ryan, But the other thing that was so interesting, the labor union thing was so fascinating because I had to like read it twice. And he basically says, my dad was a labor union. He's a teacher. I would have been a labor union. If you're in a specialized field, be a labor union person. He's saying that. But he does say to be a specialized person, you're a dinosaur. because you can't be special. You got to read everything. So it's what I'm saying is like he takes a slower approach to landing in the same pool of nothingness and toxicity and bullshit that other conservative, like he's kind of like Trump in that way, where Trump to the white person who's like in freaking Ohio, lost their job. I'm not trying to give him defense. I'm just saying like,
sounds like a populist or something like that.
If Paul Ryan came through there, he would have told those white guys like, listen, you just got, me, I'm Paul Ryan. You got to pull your break. And they'd be like yelling at him. But, they don't care about black or brown people. They don't care about any of us. But then Trump, Mr. Robert Kiyosaki comes in and says, no, they did rig it. But you can't change it. So there's the swamp language. There is a swamp. But different from you and me, they don't really want to get rid of the swamp per se, because they're worried about the rest of us rising up. So they're trying to launder a different populism, but capitalist populism, I don't know what. But that's the thing about him that I just want to say, like, he is writing something that is laundering a view that's still deadly, but is a little bit less on the nose than some people would think.
Well, I wanted to leave this up on the screen to make a couple of points. One, to support some of what you were just saying there, but also to remind folks, to point out that I don't want, he doesn't like socialism, and socialist is mentioned, I think, once or twice in the entire book, but it's used to do exactly what you just said.
Right.
One, it's interesting. He called, this was brought up in one of the videos I'll put in the show description, but that he called his father a socialist, right, simply because his father was the head of all of education in Hawaii and ran for lieutenant or maybe governor at one point on the Republican Party. And in other words, he calls him a socialist simply because he wasn't explicitly, directly, and only focused on business.
Right.
Okay. But of course, it was his socialist father that gives him that $100,000 at some point, but that gets left out. But the other reason I leave this on the screen is because this is the genius that Marx and Engels were lacking in their work. That this sort of diagramming of the problem. And if Marx and Engels had seen this, they would have revised the Communist Manifesto and all their other work immediately. Because they would have seen that assets just need to flow into income and become into corporate income and become personal income, and that expenses from personal income should flow into corporate income statements. And it's so beautiful in its simplicity.
Oh.
But as he says here, having two fathers teaching me, one socialist and the other capitalist, I quickly began to realize that the philosophy of the capitalist made more financial sense to me. It seemed to me that the socialists ultimately penalized themselves due to their lack of financial education. Yeah. No matter what the take from the rich crowd came up with, the rich always found a way to outsmart them.
Yes.
That is how taxes were eventually levied on the middle class. The rich outsmarted the intellectuals solely because they understood the power of money, a subject not taught in schools. So that's why you need my board game, my book, and my very expensive courses, and my very, very, very powerful diagrams.
He's a schemester, because at the end of his chapters, one of them was like, and that's why we blame the archaic education system. It's like, you really hate. So that's the one thing that he was always consistent with Republican Party. From like, I'm in New Jersey, Chris Christie, the proto-Trump. The only reason why Chris Christie did not do well in the GOP is because Trump was just louder and frankly smarter than him. But Chris Christie would yell at teachers. That was a thing he would do at the beginning of his governorship. There would be teachers like who'd come to forums, and he would just lean into them. I'm not saying all teachers are great. I'm a bit biased because my partner is a teacher, but he would just lean. I remember that as like a young person. Like, he would just lean into them, be like, "You're the reason why we suck. You're the reason why." But that's what he just says, like, all these things about the rich, like you said. Like the book says, like, they're just too smart for us. It's almost like it's not Afro-pessimism, but there's a sense of nihilism to it. You know what I mean? There's like a brilliant nihilism. Right, exactly, yeah. Euro-pessimism. There's a sense of like, well, the system exists to screw you over. Anyone who wants to change, well, he doesn't really say that unless the socialism comes up. Anyone who wants to do tax policy, because the thing with the tax stuff, he says taxes were levied in England and US, by the way, the only two places that ever had taxes, of course. And they would tax the rich. The rich moved into corporations. Let's also not talk about what those corporations invested in and what they sailed away to do. So that's, let's not keep that in our heads. We all had opportunity to invest in that. As a Desi person, oh my God, if only I was around during the British East India Company, I would have been like, screw my parents. I'd be like, put 2 cents on that.
You could have, I mean, your ancestors were this close.
This close to making it. If I only listened to Q, if I just use Jean Grey powers to figure out what he was thinking. But
I mean,
yeah,
if the indigenous here could have put up got 8% on that 20,
that's what's happening in Palestine. They didn't invest
they
in
didn't
it
invest
enough.
soon
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah, it's not
They've been outsmarted by the rich.
It's not the Europeans coming down and having all the state power behind them. It's not the law and warfare. It's not the debt and the death. It's all because
Look,
they didn't create a land trust.
That is that I know you mentioned it earlier, but that's the best part about of all of having to go through any of this for our project. That's what you see in the Donut King.
Yes.
That what's extracted and made a popular, relatively speaking, documentary is a smidgen of the story that ignores all of the broader geopolitics that he's actually involved in and that actually impact that little bit of his narrative around a donut shop, a donut industry that part gets magnified and projected out to a broader audience as the solution. And that was the sole response and the motivational force and the highest of heights,
right?
And everything else was this is a small thing I'm doing. This is like my American hustle, having escaped my Cambodian hustle that I'm going to reignite with the Republicans in a few years anyway. In some, so I mean, if you, it's like it's weird. You watch the Donut King documentary and then you're like, oh, wow. And then you go get the book. And if you have no idea, you're going to get, I'm sure, a very distorted, narrow view. But this whole Cambodian history, this whole U.S., Vietnam, Cambodia, geopolitical Republican Party, favored nation status, hustle. I mean, it's like all of that's going, and that's where at the end of the day, all of the wealth and the public policy and all of the power is determined. And that's where, but no, it gets distilled into in popularity and put on us as some entrepreneurial fantasy around donuts.
But the thing is, what we're saying is also, this isn't just what we're interested in. What I'm fascinated by is not so much this is not directed towards a Asian or a Black person or indigenous person who is a Reaganite.
Correct.
This is stuff that's like you said, isn't the Donut King, wasn't that originally on HBO or something, or it was a big documentary in these film shows?
That its ultimate distribution, I'm not clear on.
Right, but
it was brought to me through some popular Black centered social media out. So. And then when I looked in, so all I remember looking into the film off the top of my head is that it did have some sort of popular release, and then likely, I think, got a lot of copyright issues around the Wu-Tang music in particular. I feel like probably Wu-Tang stuff more than anything. But there was a lot of commercial rap music in there, which was also another odd, and I'm not. So now that's why I've said we've mentioned in previous meetings, and I have as a note, I want to look more into the filmmaker and her choices as to why this is how this became the story. Because if again the book of the same title isn't about donuts.
No, it's not. But the reason why I'm saying that is the book. That was not for Daily Wire consumption.
Right.
That was for it was on a.
No, you're right. Popular
South by Southwest. It was big. It was big. And the directors are liberal code. I say
right.
Liberal
That's
code
right. That's right.
Because I think there was producers attached to it. One white, but another Asian American woman. I think who's older than the director of this one. Also, when we touched on it earlier, I don't think the director is really they do commercials. right? So that was the other
Right.
thing that was so interesting. So how they pluck the, it's just so much here where all I'm saying, there's a lot here when you think about where it's not necessarily organic to what they're really saying. Because the point of the story is to say, look at this Cambodian American man or Cambodian immigrant / refugee who made it, who helped other Cambodians. That was the story. That's not really in the book. Instead, the book is, and what he wrote and self-published about himself was, to what you said about Mr. Robert and getting 100 grand from his dad, which is insane any era. In that book, there was he mentions how he works in a donut company that was by a couple of white owners, obviously in Cali, because it's the 70s. And then he wants to prove himself to like open his own little thing off of that chain. But how he got that, he has a white friend who vouched for him. And so they put the money up for him.
And put him in the training program and all of that. Yeah.
All of that is not like, it's like a story of so Asian Americans also are meant to look at that story and be like, yes. But it's like nothing is said about, so when he also mentions the Khmer Rouge, he doesn't talk about the US supporting the Khmer Rouge. He doesn't talk about the Vietnamese communists who rightfully beat the shit out of the French and the Americans. And by the way, Robert was a helicopter pilot, right, during Vietnam. I was like,
and by the way, oh my God, that reminds, sorry to jump in. Oh my God. Do you know he tells a story, apparently, allegedly, where he says as a helicopter pilot in Vietnam, as a Marine, some kid, he admits to a war crime. He said some kid kicks him in the boot. He's like, because he does all this in like these red pill lectures. And he apparently at one point he says, some kid was playing around and kicked me in the boot, and I shot and killed him. And then walked off. And that's that. It's like, so even, and in this one video, it's like the slant in this part is like from a pro U.S. military perspective. It's like even from a U.S. military, and then the guy quotes the section of the U.S. military code that says specific, like this, like even the military at least is smart enough to put in print that this is a war crime. Like we don't, and but he's out here saying this. So do we know if it's true? No. But in some ways, if it's not true, I don't want to say it's worse because that would mean that the kid actually got killed. But in some ways, that you would make this up when it didn't happen says something equally disturbing about the character, the person.
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
So that's what I mean. Like this is the guy who this is his approach to the world that is very fitting with his approach to the whole settler colonial experience of the indigenous population here. They just missed a great investment opportunity.
Well, wow. I don't mean to cut you off. I'm just excited. But the thing about that too, which is horrific and sad, and I recommend people read "Kill Everything That Moves" by Nick Turse. I just started it, had to stop it because I know of it, but it's a lot. Like even
it's sharp.
It's sharp. He talks about AFRICOM. He's really good, and but that also reminds me, just generally, but that also speaks to the id of U.S. society and corners of it. That like what you're saying also speaks to his sociopathy, but also it speaks to what can get you ahead in this society too, right? Like Pete Buttigieg, wasn't Wes Moore too? Like I know he lies a lot, but like these people are in the military. They use it as a talking point. Like I'm not supposed to use guns I used over there here. And that's a liberal point, but I'm like, okay, so you have they're kind of admit it's fine to use drones and go through Basra and kill the shit out of Iraqi people, but here it's too much. But that's the thing, like some people would still be like, yeah, and I don't remember like the popular media too, like Lovecraft Country. I was actually like, I liked that show a little bit, then I kind of lost my mind with it because it was too violent. There were parts of the spoiler alert. There's one where the main black actress, who's in, I think, Sinners, she changes into a white woman using a formula, which was kind of interesting because it was like, like it's kind of like a trope on horror, but taking it was great how but there was something she does in the film in that episode where me and my partner were like, what the F just happened?
It's a disturbing view.
It's a disturbing view. But the main character, what's the guy's name again? He was also
I'm definitely not gonna remember that.
The main actor who got, caught up in an abuse scandal and lost being one of the villains in Marvel, but he's making Jonathan Majors.
That's right. Yeah.
In the movie, which I think they were trying to show, he's also not a great guy, but they're in one episode, he's a vet. He's a part of the U.S. troops in Korea, South Korea at the time during the Korean War, and he just straight up, there's like a line of Korean women they forced to sit on their knees, and he just walks up. I shouldn't say he, but the writers make him walk up, and he just shoots this woman in the face and kills her. And the thing is, like, the show is poorly written. Like, it's a terribly written show because there's things that you think will go somewhere, but I feel like they just not pulled it together. Because I think they wanted to show, like, hey, this guy you like is actually so complex. But they never come back to it. They never really do. So in the end, I was left with thinking at the end of the show, damn, I know it's crazy to think, but I was still like, he just killed a Korean woman on her knees, and we're supposed to forget about it? Like, that stuck with me the whole time. I was like, she was a spy for the North, and I'm like, good for her. Like, she's fighting the Japanese, collaborator class, but he just comes up. He's meant to show as being harsh. All I'm saying is Robert Kiyosaki is both shaping the product that is called American exceptionalism, but he is also a result of the product that is called American exceptionalism. What is happening now to Venezuela is literally that. Like, you'll have now Chuck Schumer can't even say he condemns any kind of overthrow of Maduro, and people now, the same liberals who will say Trump is a fascist are the same liberals who will say give Trump a chance when it comes to this awful man called Maduro. I'm sorry, do you not know American history? Like, what rights do we have? So all I'm saying is that story is crazy, but it just speaks to the character of this country and empire. The fact that you can go around, and even if it's a lie, no one calls his shit on it. No one reports it. No one is like, holy shit, except for you watching it. What did he just say? He's still living his life, talking about murdering a peasant kid probably who was like playing rocks and rightfully kicking his shoes, rightfully being like, yeah, get out of my way. He kills him. So I'm not surprised, because it speaks to the Pete Buttigieg of the world, where he says, my rifle, when I took that oath, it wasn't about using the same methods there to here. There's like crazy on crazy.
That is a good point, actually, because that gets said a lot. So what methods are you saying you were okay using over there?
Right. There's so much, even when it comes to Palestine, when they talk about, like, I don't, like, at the beginning of this recent genocide, there was an a U.S. drone strike in Iraq, killing some quote-unquote Iranian-affiliated people, they said. But the thing is, just like Martin Luther, I taught the speech recently to my kids. I teach them every semester, this Dr. King speech on Vietnam, because, King literally was leaning into the fact, like, how funny it is that the U.S. powers that be in our country say things like, the North Vietnamese are meddling in South Vietnam. He's saying, oh yeah, says the country thousands and thousands of miles away in that same place. I feel like, not to make it too much, I'm just frustrated because it's like, I feel like Robert Kiyosaki should not have existed at this point in history, but they do.
I mean, again, this is sort of where we started, was that yes, we understand that neither of us is breaking news, that this book is trash and not helpful in understanding how capitalism works, or the economy and people's relationship to it. But that it has a certain persistence, if not directly through his constant work and consistent publication and social media, but through the broader narrative, the claims that produced him.
Right.
He has helped echo and extend and reverberate into today. And and I think it is perfectly appropriate that he be dragging into it all of these horrific stories and perspectives that ultimately expose that these narratives are meant to protect all of that, and not to sort of to close wealth gaps and overturn legacies of oppression and create generational wealth for the poor.
Right.
So again, I think I cut you off like 15 times. Was there? Did you wanted to look at the chapter on history, the history of taxes and corporations? Did you want to go back and do that specifically, or was there something else in the book you wanted to make sure?
No. Yeah, I just wanted to. Well, can I just say quickly too?
Sure.
Again, these lessons about how people, the fact that Robert Kiyosaki is still here is also revealed in like very popular media, like we keep coming back to, right? Like what's the show that we are still trying to watch, the Southern Fried Rice?
Oh, no.
I have to say, I'm sorry.
Oh no.
I'm sorry. I know I had to read this. It was both our choices, but I gotta say it okay. That show is free on YouTube. It's like backed by Keke Palmer. So that's, again, this is not someone who's a conservative. She's been in like Jordan Peele stuff like Nope, which is, I think, was good. Sorry, Jared, but he in that show, it is very similar to what Robert says about poor people or working. Well, who's poor? It's all over the place, right? That's one thing that's so brilliant about his class. And you're right, Marx and Engels didn't have anything on him. He's amazing.
They didn't have that diagram.
No, they didn't. They had other things about Lenin and shit, but who cares about that? Like, so this is
the show again is Southern Fried Rice, executive produced by Keke Palmer on her YouTube TV channel. You can see it for free there. I admit I've still only seen the first 5 minutes. No. I've only seen the first 5 minutes of the first episode.
Okay,
I told you I couldn't get past.
Sorry.
That initial trope. Once her friend said, I would have been in college with you, but I messed around and got pregnant like my mama, and my life is now over. I was like, I'm out. I said, I can't do it. So that's as far as I got. I will go back to it for our project.
But that's the point.
I in that moment, I was like, I can't, I can't do it.
That is the part of the book that speaks to me about that part of the show that speaks to me of the book. Like, how there's not many steps between the two. Like, he's saying poor choice mindset, like you said, mindset. You have fear. You don't want to live in a dark room with no lights on for a couple of weeks. That's fear. It's like, what?
you don't want to exist without health care.
That's fear.
That's fear. You fucking cowards.
Yeah, you got to add the little bit of a demeaning a little bit. Like,
you
want to be like them, those idiots, your mom and dad. You got to be more specific. It's like, how not my mom and dad? But in that show, like your point, like at that point, it's a show about
that is exactly how it started.
American girl who is in a black family. She's adopted. Some of the story is sweet because whatever, but it's also a little bit weird because it's they're black, but the father is is part of the U.S. troops there, so that they can't have their own kid, so they adopt her. They take her. It's interesting enough.
It's soft power U.S. imperialism. Why is the U.S. military there in the first place? Seriously, but that's
But that's Lovecraft Country. Like it's better than that. It's soft power. They adopt. The whole point of Korea is to adopt as many Koreans. But so they adopt this kid. She grows up, and then exactly. And then the best part. So she's Asian. That's big. She's Korean American. She's a stand-in for all Asians.
Right.
And then her best friend is black woman the same age. The part of the show that you stopped, and I also thought to myself, Jared's going to stop here, is the part where her mom, who's black, I guess her father, who's African American, has died and passed on. So the mother, her best friend, I know, I was about to say that too. There's no,
they can't be black fathers. Get him out of here.
He's dead. He's passed on. He's somehow, again, like, I was also thinking that, I was like, where's the dad? And I also got used to, I was like, all right, he's just dead, I guess, but whatever. So yeah, it can't be that. So anyway, so the best friend and the mom drop her off at the college. It's an HBCU. That's also important. And this is the best part. To me, it's just fascinating because I was like, holy shit. Like, I think I told you, I called it like Charles Murray on acid. Like, this was Charles Murray on acid. Like, basically, her best black friend says in a very badly written exposition about her life, like she's about to dropping her off, like, hey, listen, I could have been here with you, but I got pregnant. But the thing that's key, she's black. And the girl is Asian. They grew up in the same neighborhood.
Same house.
And
Same parents.
they also said the black girl was educated and brilliant.
Yeah, they make it. You're right. She's smart. They make you. They make you aware that she's smart and had it all out there for her. But
Right.
go ahead, because your point is brilliant on this. It's right on too.
But she got pregnant. So what does that mean? Implicitly, bad choices. But biologically, Asians, East Asians, amazing people. Like just inherent. There's no cultural evolution. There's no communism. There's no part of America. I even tell this to my Asian American kids. I'm like, when they read the books with me, you do know enemy number one in this country, obviously domestically with black folks and indigenous folks, Mexicans too. But when you speak of it like on a spiritually like foreign policy example, it was Vietnamese people, the Chinese, right? Even to this day. So it's ironic, like you see in front of you, that Asians for a long time, East Asians, were not seen as perpetually amazing. But now they are. So this show does that. And then there's a black woman in the show. Remember that, the black roommate, who the first scene you have of her, well, she's like more heavy set. She's darker skinned. Those are two key components.
The
And
heavy set, dark skinned sidekick. I mean, it's
Right.
which is itself it's a descendant of that old trope about the black mammy.
Right.
You got to have the heavy set caregiver who's going to provide all of this emotional and anecdotal sort of what is it? Like that homegrown wisdom.
Right. But the show also makes fun of her.
Well,
right? Remember, like the first scene we see is of her. This is an HBCU, by the way. So I think most people should have posters like this up there. But they made a point to say, look at the poster she's putting up. There's a Malcolm X poster.
Right.
And what you find out, which is also a big FU to Malcolm X, this annoys me to no end about how people think of Malcolm X. He's an internationalist from the start. He talks about Dien Bien Phu from the start. The whole battle. He never hesitated on having Asian American friends. Yuri Kochiyama and him were like this for a long while. But he was always like, Algeria, we got to be like Algeria. We got to be like the Vietnamese. He never once talked about black nationalism or Pan-Africanism in any way that this show suggests. Because that woman with the Malcolm X, she turns around and what she do to this Asian girl who's so innocent, nothing, she's biologically just amazing. She says, oh, you're not, she's offended that this is an Asian woman. It's like a lot of things in there. But again,
so Malcolm is used as the
trope of like
the narrow nationalist. I don't like a non-black person. Oh wow!
And all the black characters in that show so far, I stopped too. All the black characters in the show, all of them. There's an ominous music that plays when they want to have fun, and it's very clear to me. I'm still on episode 2 that the girl's journey will probably be like fighting, like she's going to be dragged into the party zone of college. Robert's book. I mean, what's the difference between that?
Listen, I quickly want to emphasize the point. Yeah, I'm sorry. I stepped all over the.
No, it's fine.
Listen, but I want to emphasize the point that you made about this that Charles Murray, the foundation of Southern fried rice,
right?
That Asians can't fuck up. Even when you deposit them in the black ghetto, raise them in the black hood with black families and black parents, their inherent superiority will have them ascend. Whereas the opposite is also true. This black woman raised in the exact same circumstance,
wild.
The only difference biologically connected to the household and therefore culturally dragged down by the DNA of her Africanness is can't help, despite all of, because they make it clear she's probably even smarter than the Asian is the way they're depicting it.
Yeah.
But she just is dragged down by her inherent Charles Murray inferiority to repeat the sins of her mother by getting pregnant. And then of course it's even that is in itself condemned. I've had many, I don't want to say many. Over the years, I have had several young and returning mothers in my classes.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea that having a child is an end of the life, you can't, that's it, just quit.
It's wild.
I mean, even all of that, that's why I was like, yeah, I'll come back. I'll Tyler Perry my way, through it the way I did for that project years ago. But damn, that was just brutal.
I just wanted to raise that show because to me, this is about, we're not what we're trying, like we've figured out some things to maybe, the irony is that even though African Americans in some of these shows perceive Asian Americans as being like the setting the standard, and then for Asian Americans in like some of the podcasts I've listened to, they also view African Americans favorably, but they view it as African Americans did the hard work of political rights. So they're both giving positive lessons to each other, but they're still like this book, not exactly the same maybe all the time, but just like this book, they're still feeding a myth industry. So it's like, what was the term? I think I wrote it. I was like cross-racial myth making. Yeah, the cross-cultural, cross-racial myth making industry.
Yeah.
And underneath that is a little bit of the spiritual of Rich Dad.
No, because it's all framed in that. Because the lessons learned from the civil rights movement are taken to mean the entrepreneurial and independence, do for self.
Yeah.
We can advocate. We can circulate our that kind of. It's that kind of thing. It's not the revolutionary part. It's not the Riverside Church part. It's it's a very narrow version of it. Right. So it does get repeatedly reframed in that Rich Dad Poor Dad way. There is one other thing that if I can, I would want to share that speaks to because I was interested in one of the things I did want to bring a little bit to this conversation and more to our eventual final project is are some of the media narratives and the way these messages are disseminated, and what is the relatively discernible impact on audiences. So in this case, I just wanted to see, because again, we're going back to where we started. Even when I just, in my limited social media sphere, posted that we were going to have this conversation, I don't know. I'll go back and look again, but it felt like at least 90% of the comments that had some sort of reference to I got caught, or someone I know got by this guy's book. And that it's had an enormous impact, the way that my former colleague brought it to me in the workplace and again, sort of our collegial relationship in the workplace got ruined because I came back to report that I can't agree with any single thing in this book. Like, this book is a mess. But for her, it was like really important. And because she had gotten it from her father. So, that was another part of it. So it wasn't obviously, I mean, there's certainly going to be defensiveness around it. What do you say? My dad is wrong? It's like,
right.
No, I'm not. I would never say anybody's parents are mistaken, but this book is a mess.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say now, but so I did find this one example from the Washington Post that was talking about, the backlash that Kiyosaki got after he put tweets out calling the protesters around George Floyd's killing losers. And I thought this was revealing because just some of the comments were saying, like this rich dad, poor dad to racist dad. A woman in California tweeted, "You made millions from those so-called losers trying to change the trajectory of their lives by buying your books. I'm sick of racist opportunists using people of color to profit, but like every snake in the garden, you will be exposed." Another Twitter user said, I was one of those felons that bought your book. A lot of us did while in prison. Thanks for showing us your true colors. I'll be sure to pass this information along. I think someone mentioned in the chat that this was one of the, this point about prisons, like this book got passed around a lot to people in those spaces with the idea that when you get out, or maybe you're in here because you weren't smart and didn't understand what to do with your money, but this is what you can do when you get out. And then anyway, they brought up some of the criticism, like the father was fake, And then his response was, is Harry Potter real? Why don't you let Rich Dad be a myth like Harry Potter? So he's saying, like, I don't, it's a myth, whatever, and let it be a myth. This woman says, I paid $250 several years ago to attend a Rich Dad Poor Dad session in New York. At the end of the workshop, we were offered a mentorship as budding developers, but at a hefty price to the tune of thousands of dollars. So yes, again, like that initial meeting or course or lecture might be $200, $300, but they're bringing you into something that could get up to as again, one video reported anywhere from $12,000 to $45,000 or $44,000. So yeah, there was a petition taken out with at least 500 signatures after this incident came out in 2020, I believe, or 20. Yeah, looking to condemn him. And then Kiyosaki said, I don't know what to say. If I did know what to say, I'd be afraid to say it. First Corona, then Gates vaccines. Fauci shuts businesses down. George Floyd, BLM, mass looting, Antifa, and defund the police. Mob rule reigns. Sick. What happened to our freedom of speech and our humanity? So that's the guy. That's the kind of guy he is. He also said how to end inequality, free college degrees, and they point out that this is his misspelling. No test required, free mansions, free Ferraris, free healthcare, all police fired, Fed prints trillions so shoppers can shop till they drop, free food, end taxes, shut Washington down, the elite's dream of utopia, my idea of hell. And then, as Tia Atkins said, that she would no longer recommend Rich Dad, Poor Dad after the loser tweet. But yeah, I just as one example of how popular he had been to so many and how effective he had been at taking again what was written by Sharon Lechter as a brochure for his board game, and turned it into a bestseller when she understood that the real play was not trying to sell actual financial advice to actual people who actually understand the economy. It was to sell fantasies to people who don't know and can't access and cannot benefit from any of these claims. And in so doing, in the course, pun intended, of selling courses and books, you become a millionaire while convincing poor people that they should do something else. And then for me, the last grand piece of it is this is the whole broader financial literacy, black capitalism, capitalist, free market fundamentalists. This is a rebranding of everything that's meant to move people away from what are actual radical politics and actual solutions. And it's, yeah. So I'm happy. Yep. Those are all the points. But all the stuff he says, even the earn your leisure stuff, all assets over liabilities. So I didn't see any direct. I did a little look to see to what extent there was overlap. Did they talk about him or maybe even interview him? I didn't see that.
I don't see that.
But the logic is there, and literally the language, assets over liabilities, and then the same play. You're making money selling courses and lectures, and but that's not, you didn't make your money investing. You didn't get rich flipping real estate and doing this, that, and the third, and breaking the code on the stock market. That's not what you did. You got rich selling. So it's the same play being run here.
That is really telling. I'm glad that more in that sense he exposed himself that way. But like those tweets were saying, it's also quite, again, this is not if you're in prison and your life has been kind of hard, very hard, like it is important, like what time do you have in there except to read, but it is quite sad in a way and very angering to realize someone like him could prey on people's real sense of desperation to get out of a hole. And that's the thing about him, again, that makes this so frustrating, amusing, and also disgusting and dangerous, is because, again, he does the whole like game of you don't need to get formal education. In fact, the people who are formally educated are quite stupid, right? So in some sense, it speaks to a real concern that some people have about being looked down on condescended to, and also feeling like, well, I didn't get my education maybe, and so I'm out of it. So he comes in and he talks about, you don't need to do that. I mean, obviously he does the 1-2 of like, but I'm, listen to me. But he does give a little bit of that. The thing that's kind of interesting is like he gives a sense of agency. Like there's nothing systemic, really. It's like he gives a sense of like, you don't need to just give up. You just need to be like lean in, right? And I think what appeals to people, and even to some degree, someone like me, maybe 15 years ago when I was younger, is the idea that the situation you're in is not all of it. There's that's there,
Absolutely, yeah.
right? But what makes it so disgusting and dangerous is that too, because in that whole book, like I'm thinking like, is that always been him, or he's moved for? Because in the book he does say things also like, so he's anti-elite, which is again fine, whatever. But even I think you've mentioned a couple, like even that sort of gets into these weird waters, right? Of like, what does that mean? Because don't you want? This is gonna maybe make me seem a bit condescending too, but I don't know. But I don't want just anybody doing my surgery. I don't want just anybody, right? Like teaching me something. It requires training, and even in a socialist economy. I mean, heck, I know Cuba's
That's
under
not
embargo.
elitism.
Right, yeah, but I'm just saying there is.
That's sound logic and self-preservation. That's
right. But I'm just saying, there is a level where you could say that, but it gets lost even along sections of like, because there is a legitimate annoyance with academics.
Yeah,
there is a legitimate annoyance, but then there is also like, okay, so you want people like the classes I teach about U.S. empire and Asian America, that comes from other people who know what they're talking about. So I guess like someone could say like, oh, well, you are an academic, you hoard your knowledge, you don't really know how life is, and that's his whole thing. But I'm like, this is crazy, because he uses anti-elite logic to again redraw the lines where the elites are fine anyway. Because I wrote this quickly in his book, he drops these little nuggets that are so interesting. Like you said, his father's a socialist because he believes in government. He's not a socialist. Then he also says socialized healthcare. He regards America. So he says the American healthcare system U.S. healthcare system is bad. Again, truth. And then the little nugget, the shit that it comes with it is it's socialized healthcare that's making it bad. So this is where it's like, again, all these logics are coming through. It just makes me so annoyed that this man has preyed on real problems and people's concerns while also doing the little dance that GOP and Democrats have done to, in my opinion, shut out the revolutionary rhetoric, but also in some cases shut out conversations that need to be nuanced. Like, heck, you do need to understand history, and you do need to understand politics. Like Asada Shakur, I think in the interview you did with me about the article I wrote, the thing I did in that piece was Asada Shakur said study is important. In her own, like, it's not just lived experience, it's study. Like, she admits to herself she did not know some things, even though she was a voracious reader, and maybe that's her parents doing, like she was always learning things. But it was until a couple of like African students from Africa who said to her, hey, what do you know about Vietnam? And she admits in the book, that's the thing I love about the memoir and about her, she admits to not a failing, just something she had to learn. And that's the thing that we also miss from our, the revolutionary class was about that, like a bit of everything. And now we got Kiyosaki being like, I just think about the people in jail who in a different era may have been shuffling through George Jackson books.
Well, I was just going to say, I think it's important to point out that that his books are all over the place, but George is still banned and punishable if found on you. And I think that's sort of the point.
Mm-hmm.
That yes, a lot of people that I would end up disagreeing with do start on there is some thread that they pull that is sound. Yeah, it is messed up. The game is rigged.
Right.
There are problems here. But they end up just stoking just that sort of desire for change and stoking the flames that people have righteously for some sort of independent sovereignty or whatever. But then it's all pushed into some very free market fundamentalist nonsense and that's why it becomes platformed and a New York Times bestseller. And this is why when Chidi Machid says, making the joke about socialized healthcare, no, but his point is any sign of a safety net is socialism and the problem. And that's why his real father could be a socialist just because he's a Republican governor who's the head of the state's education. Like it's like that. It's also, by the way, meant to forever distort any meaningful conversation about what socialism would actually be. So people hear it and then.
Well, it's like the Mamdani thing too. Like I saw someone comment that Mamdani condemned Maduro, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can have another conversation about Mamdani. I'm glad now everyone thinks every non-South Asian person is a Mamdani in waiting. Like it's nice to know, like everyone's now interested in these communities. That's fine. Like the thing I want to say also, I've been pushing people to organize South Asians and Arab Americans in the corridor he's from. Like I'm from Queens too. And also the New Jersey that I'm in, the part that I grew up, it's like the Mecca of Desis, like has a high concentration of Indian Americans, many of whom are old as F, who just like work basic jobs and push, like some of their jobs are like old sick men with long beards or just like pushing shopping carts, together, in the lots, right? Like I'm not, maybe if I was a Kiyosaki who had no soul, I could just write a book about like, how everything's great in the entrepreneurial class. So that's what makes me angry. It's like I grew up around enough brown folks to know this isn't it. But the thing about Mamdani too, like, so I have a little bit of like, I believe in government. I don't think it's important to give up. But to go off of that point, there is this level of, like now with him too, like him condemning Maduro, he's not Robert, but there's a lot of like myth making still, if that's the concern, right? There's still a myth making, like there's still a sense of like, all we need to do for now is to get into these positions, and then maybe acclimate a bit with the Democrats to win over some things, and then hunky-dory over 30, 40 years, we will finally say socialism, not just democratic socialism. I think you need to deliver on goods because people are not doing well. I'm not doing it. But then when he condemns Maduro, I'm glad someone brought it up. When he condemns Maduro, that's the myth-making part of it. Like, that's the thing. Like, to your point, this is not the same thing, but we live in a society where even so-called people on the left who win certain amounts of power have to reinforce an American exceptionalism that is quite dangerous to us here and obviously to people there, right? Like the fact that you're condemning Maduro with Jorge Ramos and saying like, they lead a repressive government. Cuba, and he also mentioned Cuba. He's like, what about Cuba, right? Cuba too. And he said, yeah, Cuba too. I was like, what's the point of this then? Like, if you're not gonna you've won the thing, like you're not gonna, I teach my students a speech by Fidel in 2003. And Fidel in that speech is like talking to the American people and they're all shocked. They literally are like, and these aren't kids who are against him, but they're just like, oh wow, I never knew he talked to the American people like that. And one kid said accurately, this sounds like a resistant lib thing in a good way. Like Castro was just like saying things to the American people. We're sad what happened to you on 9/11. Don't invade Iraq. And George Bush is a fascist. Watch out for him. We're with the people. And also Cuba sends doctors. Mexico was sending firefighters into. All I'm saying is, even people who we want to be on the left in American discourse, they're part of this myth-making machine that inadvertently pushes away conversations that we need to have to really build up political consciousness, right? We are going to invade Venezuela soon, right? And I'm just worried about how even people on the liberal end, in power at least, not even people themselves are actually kind of moving against these things, but I'm just worried about the myth-making approach on all sides when it comes to that kind of, because the whole thing about Kiyosaki, again, he mentions being a helicopter pilot too. It's like, that's the first thing I thought. I was like, oh my God, how many Vietnamese did you mow down? That was my first thought. I was like, wait a minute, you must have killed so many Vietnamese people. And for what? For what? And then the Mamdani thing, I'm glad someone brought up. I'm just saying the myth-making industry, this book and our condemnation is not just about like, look at these conservatives. I hope what we're saying, and you're saying that the discourse itself is quite narrow, and people like Kiyosaki still thrive in a discourse that is quite pro U.S. American exceptionalism, and maybe not free market fundamentalism to everybody, but small business. On really quickly, the Asian American women who were killed in Atlanta. I think I mentioned this. The Asian American women who were killed in Atlanta just a few years ago at the height of the anti. There were articles out on CNBC or no on MSNBC or something that were saying if you really like for a month people cared about Asian Americans for it was great, I guess. And they one of their things that came out was an article of Asian American businesses to buy from. Women were murdered, workers were murdered. And then what the response was, this is not the GOP handing out a flyer. This was traditionally liberal mediascape saying to honor those women, buy from other Asian conglomerates or something. It offended me because if you read an article, there was an article about one of the Asian American women's sons. It was a New York Times piece. I always reference it. In that article, he actually said in the New York Times, my mom hated going to work, essentially. And she was murdered because she hated the hours it took away. So yeah.
That, again, that was the playbook.
Mm-hmm.
Someone from a community is killed, promote shopping from one of those communities' vendors and outlets. Buy black, George Floyd was killed.
Right.
Asian women killed. Just find any random Asian store.
Right.
Buy something from it, and it will make everything better.
Right.
I thought a second ago you were going to, I admit this because this is unfortunately come up again for me, but I thought you were going to mention Killer Mike a second ago. In terms of people, I thought you started to say Killer Mike when you were talking about people who end up unfortunately representing the left or something like that.
Oh, I see what you mean. No, I didn't think of that. But I know,
okay, so I'm projecting here, but in part because, and I'm gonna try something here to that I think because recently I admit I watched the series The Lowdown. I don't know what made me watch it. I don't know, but I end up liking. It's got. I forgot everybody's name, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But Killer Mike is in it.
Okay.
And I must say, I'm on the one hand, I do think actual actors should get these roles. I'm not saying he's breaking ground, but he's not bad. He's not horrible. But initially I wasn't thrilled that he was in it, but then but even he can't mess up the series. So I like the series, whatever. So, but there's this scene and I'm going to try to play it from my phone so we can try to get away with it. So it's not, but just watch what happens. I'm not even going to say anything else. He's in the car with the main character I forgot his name. Who's the white guy from Training Day again?
Oh, Ethan Hawke.
Ethan Hawke.
Oh,
who's really good in this? Like he's the lead in this series.
Oh, this is the FX show.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was pretty good. Pretty good. I'm not. Please don't anybody. Anyway, it's just some silly shit I was watching. I liked it, but then watch this scene. I said, "Oh my goodness," because it actually fits with what we're talking about here. Let me get this thing pulled up here. Can you all hear that?
No, I'm kind of lawyer. Mm-hmm. You know what? After we finish dropping papers, there's a guy I know you should meet. He's my cousin. All right, but you trust him. Trust him more than I trust you. That's good. You believe this guy wants to be governor so fucking bad that he's willing to take a hit out on his own brother? You're dealing with greedy people, and greedy people don't know right from wrong. You get in their way, you get tossed. Doesn't matter if you're a journalist or a preacher. Look at Greenwood. They massacred black folks and indigenous folks, and they did it for greed and hate. Look at them. They knew what they were doing. They were making Tulsa white. They were making a system. They were creating a wealth class, and they were knocking down lot after lot, dropping shit from planes. Regular hateful folks don't drop shit from planes. That takes hate and power. These people were hateful. These people had a superiority complex. These people had money in their eyes. Those are the people that drop shit from planes. And whatever it was, whatever that thing that was fueling the fire underneath, it's still here. You get in the way of that, you're going to get smoked. Be smart like me. Take care of what's in front of you. Be smart like me, and they can't touch you.
So I heard that and I said, I was trying to be objective as possible. Could this be, given the context of these characters, the kind of discussion that would actually happen. And I have to be honest, I would say maybe. But it also gets to the point that I'm interested in what our project is, that these narratives seep into every aspect of our lives and become stand-ins for the righteous desires for revolutionary change. So even in the context of this silly show, where they're trying to solve a murder mystery in Oklahoma, and there is this overlap of race, class, land. I mean, I found it interesting and pretty good. It is, of course, liberal. It is counter, all of this Vernon philosophy, everything, all in that. But I saw that scene and I said, damn, not only is Mike again running his own personal, I think he's personally connected to this narrative around the Greenwood
Banks or something.
bank and the Tulsa, Oklahoma mythology and but at the same time, I think if I remove my bias and all of that as much as possible, I think it does actually reflect how this would happen in real life. That kind of what we were saying about Kiyosaki's book ending up in prisons and all this other stuff, that people, they want to solve a murder mystery here and deal with, whatever. We're trying to and the default becomes part of the default response to say, we should and we have taken previously entrepreneurial pathways to our salvation,
Right.
and only the most vicious of the whites have ever stood in our way. And if it wasn't for those vicious Klansmen, Tulsa would be good. Black communities can now be good because those barriers no longer exist, because that level of viciousness doesn't exist anymore. And outside of the sensationalism of this particular series and the violence and whatever that's in there, only the most evil people would fly over planes and drop bombs and dynamite on people just for developing their own business community. That won't happen anymore. So if we without that, we can get back to that and be fine, because outside of that series, Killer Mike is saying
Right.
the Greenwood path is the solution. So anyway, I just thought it was just interesting that these they end up everywhere. These narratives end up everywhere.
The thing just about that too, I wrote down. So Ethan Hawke is also the FX. I think the same writer. I might be wrong. They made the show Res Dogs. Have you seen that one? It's about indigenous kids, I think, in Oklahoma. So Ethan Hawke is in that show too, and he has a similar vibe-ish.
Oh, that's interesting.
So the thing I wanted to say about that, I think FX. So I think the same writers are involved in that show. So I know we've been. I want to just raise a couple points that were interesting.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So because it's so fast. So on the show's angle, so I enjoyed, like you, I do recommend Res Dogs because I think it's a very emotionally driven show, and quite, to be honest with you, has parts of it that I was like waiting for in a show like this. It's a funny show, quite moving, and my partner and I, it'll make you cry. Like, it's very emotional, and it's not cheesy that way. It's very real and very intense on some subject matters. But one thing I do remember, though, if the show is similar, so they have critiques here and there, but there was one scene where they're doing a special event at the main like reservation government facility, the community center, and it's a bunch of folks from a university like Dartmouth, intentionally, who are native too, and they talk to the crowd, the main characters included, teenagers, about honoring their roots and using terms like settler colonialism. But the show makes them out to be silly. Like, the kids look at each other like, what the what I found that thing struck me because it reminds me too of Killer Mike in a sense. I mean, I don't find him always silly, but I'm just saying, I believe I hear what you're saying, but I also think it's like, this all speaks to, there's a ceiling there that's still there. Does it make, like, there's a ceiling that's there in all of these texts. So nowadays in some shows you can have a bigger ceiling, like the roof is a little higher because you can say, because I agree with them, evil people, evil white people, freaking drop. It's crazy. That's true. So the ceiling is higher than a Kiyosaki book. Obviously, he would probably say, "Why didn't the black folks invest in another plot of land that wouldn't be bombed?" You know what I mean? Like they would probably like, even when the bombs are falling, you got to think 10 steps ahead. So something grotesque, right? Or maybe he just wouldn't care. But there's still a heavy limit to that. There's still a ceiling. Because what was really striking in that view, and very reminiscent of the Res Dog show, he said, take care of what's in front of you. So again, it's this logic of broader ideological, because isn't he like a hodgepodge of things anyway? Like when because he always has it, like he was on Bill Maher recently and he was talking shit to Bill Maher correctly about something Bill Maher was doing that was obviously racist. But even in that moment, I think some people were, oh, he's talking about Haiti. And he was obviously saying about how Haiti was messed up. But there's always a ceiling to him too. And it's always like, do what you need in front of you.
Yeah, he started talking about he started referencing Fanon and asking that kind of shit. It was
wild. Yeah.
And again, that's why I'm saying that. Anyway, that's why in the specific, Killer Mike has become a particular interest of mine. Even in in fact, that's why I mentioned him at all, is that I was trying to just make a point about people who are projected as left, but ultimately have very right wing and
very
at best liberal ideas.
Very.
Yeah. So yeah. But your point about staying, I'm focused on what's in front of me is often, again, that part of that narrowing. It also, it's also, even practically, it's not wise. Even if you just think about, like, you wouldn't drive a car only looking at the 2 feet in front of you,
right?
Or staring at your dashboard. it's not going to go well for you. You do have to look down
The thing is, the thing that's similar to Kiyosaki is, again, it's like the Res Dog scene. It's making fun of. It's still, there's a level of making fun of these silly people who care about revolutionary politics. So even though Res Dogs is not Kiyosaki, they did have a scene where those characters are obviously made to seem to be the detached ones from everyone, even though settler colonialism is pretty relevant. So that was, I still like the show, like you said, you're not giving a complete 100% on Lowdown, but I liked Res Dogs. But I was like, that's so interesting that that's intentional. That show is about kids on a reservation, and they're literally making a mockery of the kids who went to Dartmouth or something. It was obviously intentional. And the same thing with Killer Mike, like, take care of what's in front of you. It is silly to be purely ideological. And quite frankly, I know he throws around Fanon and freaking Asada, but how much of anything he's really read, I have concerns about. But it's Kiyosaki. Don't read them. Read me. Read what I say. So that's the interesting thing. The Res Dogs show. Don't dig deeper into these concepts. They're silly. They're not real. And they're not doing a conservative point. They're saying to the liberal crowd, look at these leftists. Look at these revolutionary thinkers. They're just silly. They're distant too. So that's fascinating, because when he said what's in front of you, that's instantly what I think of when I hear people say, oh, Sudip, like, what do I get from learning about how Hawaii was taken over?
Right. And why do I need any discussion of political economy and theory? And, I don't need all of that, because
or Palestine. Or Palestine. Why do I care about Palestine? Like, Palestine is not here. I have problems. So I agree with you 100%. But that's the fascinating thing about that clip. It's like, he just says, in the end, he says, evil people do shit to you. That's why I take care of what's in front of me. I found that already in that clip so fascinating. I take care of what's in front of me. The same man who goes up during the uprisings in Atlanta, weeps for Wakanda in Atlanta. I take care of what's in front of me. He's real. He does take care of what's in front of him, which is the bag and finding out how to manipulate, in a sense, right?
There's another, and so that's my point about the lowdown. I think it's good enough that Mike
I'll watch
he doesn't ruin it for me. There's a couple of the scenes with him where there's even one scene in there where you hear his music playing as they're walking through his
Oh.
club, and it's I mean it's dope. I mean it's
Yeah,
not
I
bad.
was a fan. Yeah.
You know, like, and then there's another part where he makes reference to he has a quick line to a politician and does one of the things he does in real life. You know, if you vote for support this bill, you'd have all the support for this people in this community, that kind of thing. But he's not in it enough to. And what really the real through line for me, to be perfectly honest, is the storyline about Ethan Hawke's character and his daughter. So it's the father daughter thing that is like that's really how the show sucking me into it. That's like it's but anyway, I do think unfortunately need to start to wrap up here. But I want to make sure if there's anything else. I definitely want to. There's a couple of pinned. I saved a. Thanks for the super chats. I appreciate that, everybody, and definitely want to remind everybody that Black Liberation Media is now remonetized. So again, feel free to engage as you see fit. And then definitely wanted to pin this and credit you for this financial eugenics. So that's Sudip 2025 when you cite this, and because I'm definitely gonna run with this. This is great. Again, thanks for the super chat. And I like this point that Comrade Trav is making. Can you speak any to how his cash flow quadrant? It's one of the core tenets that's used to persuade people to join MLMs. I'll quickly look for that. I honestly don't remember that part. I remember the reference to cash flow is to the game, the board game, mostly in this book. But he does have another book called Rich Dad's Cash Flow Quadrant. So maybe it's there that he deals with this question a little bit more. I'm trying to see. There's a little bit he says in here in terms of Rich Dad used to say the key to becoming wealthy is the ability to convert. In fact, let me just pull this up on the screen. What I'm looking at here. Rich Dad used to say the key to becoming wealthy is the ability to convert earned income into passive income or portfolio income as quickly as possible. So remember, this is again part of the point of us talking about this is that we're not breaking news about how bad this book is, but these are the exact talking points we see still in 2025. Develop passive income. Taxes are highest on earned income. The least taxed income is passive income. That is another reason why you want your money working hard for you. The government taxes the income you work hard for more than the income your money works hard for. In my second book, Rich Dad's Cash Flow Quadrant, I explain the 4 different types of people who make up the world of business. That's already how to me, that's always been a red flag. These types of people. Like you have to be, anyway. So they are the employee, the self-employed, the business owner, or the investor. Most people go to school to learn how to be E or S. That is the employee or self-employed. The cash flow quadrant is written about the core differences of these 4 types and how people can change their quadrant. So which of those 4 are you, and how do you get yourself into? I'm assuming investor and business owner. So again, that is in terms of MLMs that makes sense if people are going to be. I don't know the specifics, but it sounds like what the argument would be: how do you move up tiers? In the how do you bring people into your workflow or whatever they call it, and then move up? So you can become an investor or whatever. And then thanks for the super chat again. He said monopoly was a core part of his business plan. That's I don't know what to say. Um, he does say, he said, make daily choices. This is hilarious. Oh my goodness. He said, make daily choices, the power of choice. Choice is the main reason
Mm,
people want to live in a free country. We want the
mhm.
power to choose financially. With every dollar we get in our hands, we hold the power to choose our future, to be rich, poor, or middle class. Our spending habits reflect who are poor. This again speaks to my exact problems with all. This is exactly what is in the buying power mythology to this day.
Right.
Poor people simply have poor spending habits. The benefit I had as a boy was that I loved playing Monopoly constantly. Nobody told me Monopoly was only for kids, so I just kept playing the game as an adult. I also had a rich dad who pointed out to me the difference between an asset and a liability. So long ago, as a little boy, I chose to be rich. And I knew that all I had to do was learn to acquire assets, real assets. My best friend Mike had an asset column handed to him, but he still had to choose to
I love
learn to
that
keep
part.
it. That's great. He had to choose to learn to keep it. He didn't have to choose to get it handed to him.
Right, right, right.
Many rich families lose their assets in the next generation simply because there was no one trained to be a good
Mm.
steward over their assets. Um,
Can I just say really quickly?
please,
Sorry. There's
no.
also a section where I admit I wrote like a couple of sections. I said, what makes this book appealing? We went over that. What makes this book dangerous? We kind of went over that. I also said, what makes this book relevant? And then I said, what makes this book confusing? There's a lot of contradictions in that book. A lot. And I think he just went over a few in that alone, where because he talks about the rich, he does personify them as creative. He does say they have the right IQ and that they hoard knowledge from us. That's the whole anti-elite. But then he says something like that, where he says, but even they fuck up. And you're just like thinking, okay, so wait, what are you teaching me as Prometheus? Like, what are you bringing back to me? Is it really fire, or is it something that is going to catch my clothes on fire? Like, I don't understand what's going
To
on.
hear you raise it that way, it makes me think that the unconscious effect is to make people think that they're creating a revolution by switching those who have
Mm,
power. Because
right.
once I become rich,
Yeah.
I won't be like these stupid elite.
Right.
I'll
Right.
be this
Right.
new transformed elite. And then
Mm-hmm.
and then if they hear somebody say the overthrow of the of uh, the dictatorship of the proletariat, they'll think, oh yeah, I'm doing that.
Right. Yeah, I'm doing it, and
I
I'm
invested in
right.
in Apple last week. I'm about to
Oh,
be as rich as Jobs, but I'm not going to fuck up like him. And when I get cancer, I'm going to go to the hospital, unlike him.
right.
So
Right.
I'm going to really do elite right.
Well, in his YouTube videos, he has now a medical person. Like I said, they said the medical industry is wrong and bad. True. And then he says, we all know that to get the right health care, he's now selling health care with this professional that he has on his team, which is crazy. He says, see, he says, I'm not big and fat or old because of her help, but to get it, you need to be wealthy because only the wealthy can really get. So it's like that same thing. The wealthy are assholes, but you will be the good one to access that. It's a confusing book. And there's not like you saying it's a brochure makes a total sense to me, and because I was thinking there's got to be a footnote somewhere. Like these claims are huge; these are big claims. Like 80 out of 100 people would just lose their money. I'm like, where is this coming from? And also, maybe we do need gatekeepers because in the forward he did say that all the publishers said no. Like you said earlier with the Forbes 100 of women or whatever, they said no. I don't like them; they're all like devils, but at the same time, they're just like, what is this?
I mean, I get your point because
Yeah.
you don't want to say we support the existing publishing in whatever
Right,
institutions,
they're all
whatever.
awful, but
But
still,
but
yeah.
the idea of some peer review is still good. It's still good.
Yes, yes. It's inherently it's not bad. It's just that we live in a capitalist colonial society that makes it worse. But even in a socialist one, I would like to think a journal out there would be like, "Hey, Mr. Kawasaki, this does not make a lick of sense. Please come back later." And
Well,
he's gonna write.
listen, I think it came up, and I'll use this to plug Saturdays with Renee again, where you were able to join us previously over on Black Liberation Media, but also where Luna Oy and EJ just joined us for a discussion of Vietnamese dialectics. And if I remember correctly, this sort of point came up again in that context as well, that even in the very exciting sounding to me society that Vietnam is developing, they have like there's some protocol. Like you can't just be out here running your mouth
Right.
without some sort of vetting.
Right.
And at the risk of being misunderstood, I'm all for it. I'm like, to quote my man Rashad Dobbins of the legendary Cornell West theory, some of these icons shouldn't have their mics on. And I'm like, we need a couple of, switches pulled or whatever, some vetting, something. So anyway, listen, everybody, I see these jokes in the chat. Okay, all right. Listen, don't let your reaction, because that's ultimately what this is. Don't let your reaction to my immense beauty distract you from this incredibly important conversation and the depths that and the heights we've reached intellectually. So I'm just going to leave it at that, everybody, with the jokes. Everybody worried about my complexion. Anyway, that's all good. It's funny. Listen, Sudip, anything else you want to point to before we get out of here? And I definitely look forward to our next meeting about this project. And anytime you want to turn them into another live, this has been great.
Oh, no.
So, like,
I would love to do, like, I think
of fun.
We've had a couple of meetings where we've just done this back and forth for like an hour and a half. And then it's like, why didn't we just do, because it's like, I'm excited about the project we're doing, but I'm also like,
this is fun too.
This is fun. This is fun to actually, like, I was angry, but I was also very much like, fuck, like, this is crazy. Like, I was also losing my mind. So, but yeah, I have nothing else to add for now. I'm more than happy to do something down the road about other things, because I'm
oh no, definitely. I mean, because we're doing all this work anyway.
This guy's done. I don't need to. I'm still gonna watch one battle after another too. Like, I need to, like, I'm just having fun digging into things. The only thing I would want to add is that there again, the myth-making industry of America is alive and well on both sides of the aisle for Asian Americans and African Americans who are in these podcasting schebas. So it's not like Kiyosaki is the worst bunch and the most explicit one, but all I can say is that on the podcast I've listened to, there's a little Kiyosaki everywhere, littered and scattered and dusted. So that's what makes me more worried. And like you said over and over again, the counterinsurgency is real. And it takes a liberal form. Like Killer Mike in his music talks about killing your masters, but then suddenly, in other instances, he's talking about, what if you circulate the black dollar? And as an Asian American, it funny on both ends when I hear African Americans talk about Asians having made it, and also Asian Americans who are just plain out racist and think they made it just because they're like, I'm Asian, I made it. So like, this is Kiyosaki. He's Asian American, so let's also like he's a Japanese American guy, and he's not here trying to be like, oh, these guys are losers. Like, well, you're also Japanese American in Hawaii. There, you guys go out.
The colonial context of that is ignored also. Like, we just leave that part out.
That's why I mentioned Hawaii earlier. Why do I have to learn this? But he is Japanese American. He needs to shut up a bit about what he thinks needs to be able to do,
And not to be overly, culturally nationalistic or essentialist, as they would say, but damn, bro, to be a Japanese member of the U.S. military and a Marine at that,
helicopter pilot, like, not to give people trauma because it's not like this is real shit, but like that drew me immediately when he dropped that in. When he was giving little pictures, like, I joined the Marine Corps. Then he talks a little bit more. Helicopter. I'm like, wait. You killed.
Oh, you in this?
Yeah, you really. This. And he just goes over it like a sociopath to what you said earlier. Like a sociopath. Like, hey, it was a great. He went into the U.S. Marine for what? He said for learning leadership skills.
Right.
Because killing brown people in Southeast Asia, it teaches you leadership.
How better to learn?
Crazy. So yeah, he's in it. America is a dysfunctional place, and Kiyosaki exists so long as dysfunctionality exists. So that's all I got to say at the end of it. But we will win. We will win.
We will win. We're just going to have to do it without these financial literacy books.
Right. That's the first thing on the list.
Yeah. All right, everybody.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
No, thank you. This is great. I appreciate everyone in the chat, even the jokesters. I love you. I love you to death. Peace, everybody. Only if you're willing to fight for it, as Fred Hampton used to say. Do whatever you can to support the platform. Same with Black Liberation Media as well. And we'll catch you next time with more.
And what do you sacrifice?
Calm. Kindness, kinship, love. I've given up all chance at inner peace. I made my mind a sunless space. I share my dreams with ghosts. I wake up every day to an equation I wrote 15 years ago for which there's only one conclusion. I'm damned for what I do. My anger, my ego, my unwillingness to yield, my eagerness to fight, that set me on a path from which there's no escape. I yearn to be a savior against injustice without contemplating the cost, and by the time I look down, there's no longer any ground beneath my feet. What is my sacrifice? I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy to defeat them. I burn my decency for someone else's future. I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see. Now, the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror or an audience or the light of gratitude. So what do I sacrifice? Everything, 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 everything.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.